I've got a really good feeling about this next presenter. Will you please welcome to the stage, Katerina?
I'm starting to wonder whether I can convince you guys in 3 minutes about poo transplants. But anyway, here goes. So, how many of you think you're human? Or maybe? Well, the latest estimates are that half the cells in our body are human and half are microbial. And most of our body's microbes live in our gut. So our gut houses 100 trillion bacteria. So that's actually more than the number of stars in the whole Milky Way, as well as lots of viruses and fungi. And so our gut microbiome is a really complex ecosystem. So it's a bit like the rainforest, but a bit smaller and in your gut, and slightly less aesthetically pleasing. Although actually, I'd argue maybe not on a microscopic level. If you look at it closely, poo can be pretty stunning. Anyway, so the gut microbiome has been linked to lots of health conditions, including obesity, diabetes, MS, Parkinson's, autism, and even depression. And one of the things that scientists do to understand how our gut microbiome can affect our physiology is a poo transplant, or transfusion. So there was a really cool study where they took pairs of human twins, where one twin was obese and one twin was slim, and they colonized the guts of mice with their bacteria. And they found that the mice receiving gut bacteria from the obese twin would put on weight and lay down fat deposits, but not the mice receiving gut bacteria from the slim twin, even though both mice were on an identical diet. And we now also know that if mice are colonized with gut bacteria from depressed people, they start showing changes in both their behavior and their physiology that are characteristic of depression. So these fecal microbiota transplants, or poo transplants, are carried out occasionally in people, but only for severe medical treatments, and mainly to treat Clostridium difficile. So this is a really nasty gut bacteria that can be very hard to get rid of. And it's actually a 90% effective treatment, but at the moment it's only used as a last resort. But even now, there are actually starting to be poo banks being established. So that's kind of what you think is a bit like blood banks, but instead you freeze poo from healthy donors. But the thing is, if the gut microbiome can affect our weight, and even our mood, should we be thinking about using poo transplants for more than just severe medical reasons? Some DIY biohackers have already had a go. But the problem is, we don't really know everything that's in our poo. Well, I don't. Kind of hope you guys don't either. And how it can affect us. So, for example, people used to do blood transfusions before we knew about screening for things like HIV. So I think that in such a fast-moving field like this, there's a real need for regulation and ethics. So although some of the scientific findings are really, really cool and exciting, there's still so much we don't know. So I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but even if I managed to convince you about poo transplants, you're going to have to wait a while longer. Thank you.
Yeah, so the fecal transplant, where would they do it? In a hospital?
Yes, at the moment, the first line of treatment for Clostridium difficile infection, which is the only one that it's kind of proven to treat, is actually antibiotics, which seems a bit kind of counterintuitive because that can kill a lot of bacteria and can make situations worse. And so if it's for Clostridium difficile, then yeah, it's performed in hospitals, either basically by putting a tube down your mouth or the other end, or you can have it in a pill if you want, pill of poo. But yeah, so there's some really cool research at the moment actually trying to understand what properties of like a donor makes good poo. So apparently some of us have better poo than others. And one of the things we think is that people that have a very high diversity, so like kind of an ecosystem, right? So if you have more species, it might be better, more effective as a poo transplant for people who are suffering from things.
Thank you.
So Katrina, I'm just making some notes here. So you're saying we don't know shit. You know those yogurts that are supposed to be bioactive and so good for your gut? Do they work?
Well, I haven't touched them with a barge pole, but yeah. So people always ask me, do I take probiotics? And the thing is, in yogurts, the strains aren't actually identical to the strains of bacteria that naturally occur in your gut. But the key thing is that, like, if you're healthy and you haven't had antibiotics recently, our guts are so teeming with bacteria that most evidence seems to suggest that any extra bacteria that we kind of consume is too hard for it to colonize, and it largely passes straight through. But I mean, the jury's still out. So there is some evidence that maybe if you've taken antibiotics, having probiotics might be beneficial, but we're not sure. But it's interesting actually, because if you look in the cultures of many countries, so for example, we often think fermented food like cheese or sauerkraut, or like miso soup and kimchi in like Asian countries. And so maybe kind of from an evolution perspective, we know that these kind of these natural probiotics might actually benefit our health in some way.
Thank you very much. I am looking forward to you all going into work tomorrow. So I'm saying, did you do anything fun last night? Yeah, I went to see a lecture about a woman talking about poo transplants. Yeah. Bonnie looks in the office.